In 1946, Saperstein hired Langston University standout Marcus Haynes. At a time when players rarely dribbled the ball more than 3 times in a row, Haynes could dribble the ball 3 times a second.
Well, Marcus Haynes was, and I guess perhaps still is, one of the world's greatest dribblers, and was a great basketball player.
Marcus could have been in the NBA long time if there was room in the NBA for him.
But the year that Marcus Haynes joined the Trotters, most of the teams that would later form the NBA had an unwritten rule against signing black players.
Well, the NBA was a white boy club, and many players in the league thought you had your place to play and we have our place to play. It's kind of like you have your bathroom, we have our bathroom. It wasn't any more complicated than that.
Comparisons inevitably arose. Could the clowning Globetrotters compete in a serious basketball game against a traditional white team? Abe Saperstein realized that thousands of people would buy tickets to learn the answer. So in 1948, he challenged the world champion Minneapolis Lakers, led by superstar George Mikan, to a one-game showdown. Winner take all.
It wasn't like the NCAA Final Four. It wasn't like the playoffs. This was kind of a societal thing happening right before your eyes if you were participating in it. You were carrying a big load. Not just you were going to make a jump shot that night, but you were going to make a statement for this thing called democracy.
Up to that point, the 6'10" Mikan and his Lakers were the most dominant team in professional basketball. Few people thought the Globetrotters had a chance. But from the opening tip-off, the Globetrotters dropped their clowning and showed they could play straight basketball with anybody. For 40 minutes, the Trotters and the Lakers fought tooth and nail. Then, in the closing seconds, with the score tied 59-all, the Globetrotters' Irma Robinson put up a 20-foot set shot.
For that night, 20,000 people in Chicago saw that the Harlem Globetrotters could play the best in the land and beat them.
The Globetrotters came and beat the team considered to be the best, and in essence what they were doing was saying to America, we are very much a part of this society and you will be forced to deal with us one way or the other.
The Globetrotters made history by defeating the world champion Minneapolis Lakers in 1948. A year later, over 20,000 fans in Chicago Stadium saw them do it again. By beating the best the NBA had to offer, the Globetrotters sent a clear message to the newly formed league.
Any general manager in the NBA or any owner would have been a fool to miss the implications that the Harlem Globetrotters could come out and play dead even with the Minneapolis Lakers, the champions of the NBA.
Jackie Robinson had broken baseball's long-standing color line in 1947. 3 years later, the NBA realized it was time to open its doors to African Americans. The first black player to sign an NBA contract was a Globetrotter, the 6'7" Nat Sweetwater Clifton.
Sweetwater probably was the best athlete of all time.
Sweets was a hell of a basketball player. I mean, he was just terrific. He was a great rebounder, great pair of hands.
Sweetwater was quite a character, and he loved to make people happy and loved this thing called the Harlem Globetrotters.
Clifton and a few other African Americans went on to experience great success in the early NBA.
Nat Clifton drops it in to put his team ahead.
But it would be years before there was true equality in the league.
Back then, there was still a color line. I think most of the players that, at least the black players that played on the team, I think there was a minimum, maybe 1 or 2 max on each team.
The Globetrotters were instrumental in helping to establish the fledgling NBA. In the late 1940s, the NBA struggled to fill a few thousand seats, while the Globetrotters played to packed houses. The NBA often asked the Trotters to play a double bill, just to help build up interest in the new league.
I think I was 9 years old, and my father took me to see the Harlem Globetrotters, and we were way up top at the Philadelphia Arena. And I laughed, and they made baskets, and they played the first game. And I didn't know there was a second game, because as soon as the Globetrotter game was over, there was a stampede to leave. I think the Philadelphia Warriors must have played in front of about 700 people after that.
In the early 1950s, when the NBA was still struggling to get off the ground, Goose Tatum, Marcus Haynes, and the rest of the Globetrotters starred in not one, but two of their own Hollywood movies. The Harlem Globetrotters and Go Man Go introduced America's greatest basketball show to a whole new audience, not just in this country, but around the world.